for your patience.
Jordan. So are Jordan and Nicole are here. Nicole, are you here? Yes, I see you. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to kick off the meeting tonight. I'm the Secretary Treasurer, Kim Morris. Because we are having our inaugural meeting tonight, it happens once a year where we elect our chair and then our vice chair, our BCSTA rep, and our BCPC rep. So that's why I'm kicking off the meeting tonight. Before we start, the email address that people can use to send questions into the board meeting is boardmeeting1123, all one word, at sd61.bc.ca. And again, that's boardmeeting1123 at sd61.bc.ca. And I'm just going to mark the time. And I'd like to acknowledge the and recognize the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. I have one addition to the agenda, D3AB, SJ Burnside Upgrade Project Report. Again, that's D3AB under Audit Committee. SJ Burnside Upgrade Project Report. Are there any other additions or deletions from the agenda?
Yeah, Kim, sorry, Ryan here.
Yep.
Just under A3, if we could add as part A, we just shift the rest down, a amendment to the agenda on the election process that we're going to follow tonight because we are via Zoom. I'd just like to add that because I think it would be appropriate. It would be as follows, and I'm happy to send it along as well, that the proposed process for nominating and electing the chair, vice chair, BCSTA rep, and BCPC rep proceed by trustees sending in ballots by text to the Secretary Treasurer and the Deputy Superintendent to be tabulated and reported.
Okay, so election process is new, is proposed to be new A3A, and B, A to E would be renumbered B to F as accordingly. Any other additions or deletions? Diane or Trustee McNally? I think are you muted?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just not, when it comes time to vote on trustee, this might be premature, but when it comes time to vote on Trustee Painter's addition, that we text in our nominations and our votes and that those will be tabulated and reported, does that mean that the tabulation and reporting will be by individuals as prescribed in Robert's rules?
What are you proposing to be the process?
Well, I'm proposing the process to be what's stated in Robert's rules, which is to
Sorry, point of order, Chair. We're not at this discussion point yet. We're still at the agenda. Okay. So if we could go through the agenda and then get to that point of debate, that would be great.
Well, okay. It's when we're going to vote on adding a motion to the agenda, I want to know what the motion means, and I don't.
Can it be discussed when the motion is moved and put on the floor?
I suppose it could be an amendment if it's not going to work out how Roberts is stating it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other changes, do I have a mover and a seconder for the amended agenda? Tom and Ryan, Ferris and Painter. As amended, all those in favor? I think that's unanimous. Sorry, I'm taking notes. and sharing, etc. Okay, so the position of Chair of Board of Education will be, oh, sorry. I think we're going to go to A3A election process. Trustee Painter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So obviously this is not a normal occasion that we are all here on Zoom. And so what we are trying to do is navigate that as best as we can. And I think we've come up with a pretty elegant solution to do so, which I believe maintains the integrity of our vote, ensures that our votes are tabulated appropriately and that information can be reported back so that we know who is indeed the elected person. So my motion quite simply states that nominating and electing the chair, vice chair, BCSTA rep, and BCPC rep proceed by trustees sending in ballots by text to the secretary treasurer and the deputy superintendent to be tabulated and reported. We have been provided already via the secretary treasurer the phone numbers to do so. And I believe it is a very straightforward piece that hopefully we can move through relatively quickly. Thank you, Chair.
Trustee McNally? I think you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, motion to amend. And my amendment is that the report of votes be as follows, and in parentheses, as per Robert's Rules, page 395, 12th edition, that the teller's report or the scrutineer's report report the number of votes cast, the number of votes necessary for election, and the votes per candidate received. Roberts, if I may give a rationale for that amendment. On the next page of Roberts' new edition, page 396, it says the teller's report is entered in full in the minutes, becoming part of the official records of the organization. Under no circumstances may this be omitted in an election out of mistaken deference to the feelings of unsuccessful candidates. So under no circumstances may that be omitted.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Trustee Duncan?
That's Trustee Duncan.
Okay, any discussion? Trustee Leonard and then Duncan.
I'm going to vote against the amendment. All we're trying to do is make the voting as similar to past years as possible, and having the secretary treasurer and the deputy superintendent receive the votes and then report out is how we have done it for the past 25 years that I've been around. So I see no reason to change the process. At this point in time, again, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We've tried to reflect as close to the system that we normally do, and we've never had the reporting as per Robert's rules before, so I'm voting against the amendment.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, I'm voting for the amendment. I think it just complements what Trustee Brian Painter was trying to achieve and really just bolsters it by reference to Robert's rules, which is what applies where our bylaws, policies, or regulations do not speak specifically to the matter. Ours do not. And so I believe Trustee Painter and Trustee McNally are both trying to achieve the same aims, and I see the amendment as simply complementing the original motion, and so I will support it.
Trustee Whitaker?
Thank you. I'm just seeking clarification that Trustee McNally's motion just calls for a count of the ballots cast, correct? And that Trustee Ryan Painter's motion and that process still exists within her amendment. Is that correct?
May I speak to that?
Yes.
Of course, I'm not understanding something here, obviously. Of course, the ballots have to be counted and the report out as per Roberts by the scrutineers or tellers is candidate A, I mean, by name, you know, candidate A received 95 votes, candidate B received 12, so on, you know. So we don't say candidate A, we say the actual name of the candidate, though. So it's a call, a report of the number of votes received.
Okay, does that answer your question, Trustee Whitaker?
Did that clarify?
Trustee Waters?
So the past practice of this board has always been to report the results. So if a vote goes 6-3, then that is what is reported during the election process, going back as far as I can see. Last year, we didn't report the votes because this board unanimously passed a motion to say to report the winner only and not the vote counts. So if we're going on board custom, which is to vote by ballot, then the results are reported in terms of the numbers. So I appreciate Trustee McNally's amendment, but I don't think it actually changes what we're doing, which is we're going to report the results of an election. So if you want the amendment in there, we can all vote for it. But I don't think it changes what we were intending to do. Last year, we voted not to report the results unanimously. So we've shifted our thinking, I suppose, over the last year.
May I close?
I think we have one more question, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, more comment than a question, if I may. I just wanted to point out that last year, I believe it was on the advice of the past Secretary Treasurer that we ended up with that motion, if I recall correctly. But in any case, I am very pleased to see that we're going to be moving back to the original direction that this board apparently has taken in the past.
Okay, would you like to close?
Yes.
Trustee McNally?
Thanks for the opportunity. Just mildly disagreeing with Trustee Waters. I believe that my amendment actually does change the reporting out significantly because it reports votes by candidate, not just an aggregate number. So I really don't subscribe to the opinion that because something has been done for 22 years that it's necessarily the best way. And we have just completed a strategic plan that stresses accountability and transparency. And I believe my amendment to Trustee Painter's motion, which doesn't change Trustee Painter's motion at all, is worth supporting.
Okay, seeing no other comments, thank you, Trustee McNally. We'll vote on the amendment that the report of votes be as follows as per Robert's Rules, page 395, 12th edition. Scrutineer's report shall include the number of votes cast, the necessary votes for election, the number of votes for each nominee. And I'll call the question on the amendment. Those in favor? And those against? Okay. Okay, so the amendment fails, and the main motion, as moved by Trustee Painter, and any discussion on the election process? Trustee Whitaker?
Are you going to send us all those numbers? I don't think I have Associate or Deputy Superintendent's Witten's email or phone number.
Emailed out earlier today.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Sorry. I'll go over there.
Okay.
Who sent them?
I did.
Okay. thank you.
Trustee Whitaker, I just flipped it to the top of your email.
Thank
Jane.
you very much.
Okay, any other comments on the process for tonight's elections? Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And any against? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay, just taking some notes. Okay, the position of chair of the Board of Education will be elected for a term of 1 year ending in November 2021. The election process will use texted ballots that will be circulated for both nominations and elections. I will now call for nominations of the position of chair of the Board of Education. Please text the name of the trustee you would like to nominate for the position of chair to the Secretary Treasurer's cell number and the Deputy Superintendent cell number. And we'll be able to report out on those nominees in a minute or so. And I'll call a second time for nominations. If anybody hasn't had the opportunity. And I'll call a third time for nominations.
I'm sorry, what was that? Could you repeat?
And I'll call a third time for nominations. I'm just checking if fellows through. Okay. So we have nominated Jordan Waters, Nicole Duncan, and Ann Whitaker. Jordan Waters, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I will accept with thanks to my nominators.
Nicole Duncan, do you accept the nomination?
I do. Thank you to my nominators.
Ann Whitaker, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you to my nominators, and I've given this a lot of thought. And again, I thank you, but I will not have my name stand at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so the following trustees have accepted the nomination for position of chair, Trustee Waters and Trustee Duncan. I will now call for the election of the position of board chair. Please text the name, either Jordan Waters or Trustee Duncan, that you would like to elect in the position of chair to the STs and the Deputy Superintendent cell number sent to you today. Okay. Just a moment while we tally. Okay, I'd like to congratulate Trustee Waters on her election to Chair of the Board of Education for the term of 1 year. And thank you to all who stepped up. Jordan will now assume the chair position, and we'll make her a co-host on the, or a host on this meeting.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for chairing the beginning of the meeting, and thank you, Greater Victoria Board of Education. This has been the most challenging job I've done in my professional life, and I've had some doozies. And it is just such an honor and a privilege to serve you all in this way. Like, we're doing some really fantastic work together, challenging work in challenging times, unprecedentedly so. It's cliche, but it's true. So thank you so much for giving me the trust to sit in my little square on the Zoom. It's not the head of the table, but I hope to be able to continue to earn your trust as we go. So I guess I'm just jumping right into our agenda at A3B, which is the election of the vice chair. I do not have, oh, here's the script. It came right through. We are going to call for nominations for the position of vice chair. And once again, we'll send those votes to the Secretary Treasurer and the Deputy Superintendent. Let me see if there's anything formal I have to say here. It's not going to open. We are calling for nominations for the position of vice chair, which will serve for 1 year. So please send your votes.
Nominations.
And we'll call nominations. Sorry. Thank you. So I'll call a second time for nominations for the position of vice chair. And I'll call a third time. Okay, and I'll declare the nominations closed. This file is not opening, so I'm officially winging it. And Secretary Treasurer, if I missed something, please let me know. Okay, we've received 3 nominations for the position of vice chair: Trustee Ann Whitaker, Trustee Nicole Duncan, and Trustee Elaine Leonard. Trustee Whitaker, do you accept the nomination?
As I've said, I've thought about this very carefully, and at this time, I'm not going to let my name stand. Thank you.
Trustee Duncan, do you accept the nomination?
No, I don't, but I thank my nominators.
Trustee Leonard, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Well, then it's my pleasure to congratulate you as you are the vice chair by acclamation.
Oh, thank you so much for your support, for everybody's support. I really appreciate it.
I look forward to working with you over the coming year.
As do I.
I will now call for the for nominations for the position of BCPC rep. And this is the trustee representative on the BC Public Schools Employees Association. Please text the name of the trustee you would like to serve in this role. And I'll call a second time for nominations for the position of BCPC rep. And I'll call a third time. And I'll declare nominations closed.
Chair, just before we move along, maybe we can just check where Trustee Leonard has been acclaimed. For some reason, my mind is thinking the policy says that regardless of that, there still has to be a vote. Is that true or not? I just want to make sure we do that right. No, there doesn't have to be.
No.
Okay.
Okay, we have 4 nominees for the position of BCPC rep. Trustee Angie Hensa, Trustee Ryan Painter, Trustee Tom Ferris, and Trustee Rob Painter. Trustee Hensa, do you accept the nomination?
Many thanks to my nominator, but no, I do not.
Trustee Ryan Painter, do you accept the nomination?
Thanks to my nominator, but no, I do not.
Trustee Ferris, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Trustee Ferris. Trustee Rob Painter, do you accept the nomination?
With thanks, but no, I will not.
Okay, then I'll congratulate Trustee Tom Ferris in his new role as the BCPC rep for the SD61 Board of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. I will now call for nominations for the position of BC School Trustees Association Provincial Counselor. So that's the BCSTA Provincial Counselor. Please text the name of the trustee you'd like to elect to the ST and deputy's cell number. And this is for BCSTA Provincial Rep. We'll call a second time for nominations. And I'll call a third time for nominations. And I'll declare nominations closed. Okay, we have received 2 nominees for the position of BCSTA Provincial Councillor. Trustee Ryan Painter and Trustee Rob Painter. Trustee Ryan Painter, do you accept the nomination?
I do, with thanks to my nominator.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Trustee Rob Painter, do you accept the nomination? Rob? Trustee Rob Painter?
My apologies. I'm struggling with a really bad internet connection tonight. I heard my name, but
You've been nominated for BCSTA Provincial Councillor. Do you accept?
I do, with thanks to my nominator.
Okay, thank you so much, Trustee Painter and Painter. Trustees, can you please text the name of the trustee that you would like to elect to the position of BCSTA Provincial Councillor to the ST and the Deputy Superintendent? And I'll call a second time for nominations for the position of not nominations, votes. So I guess I don't have to call 3 times. And I will let you know as soon as I know the results. Okay, it's my pleasure to congratulate Trustee Ryan Painter in the position of BCSDA Provincial Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a real pleasure to fill the role for 1 year, and I'm very much looking forward to doing it for another. Thank you, and thank you to everyone for participating.
Yes, thank you to everybody who put your name forward or who accepted a nomination or considered a nomination. Really appreciate that. So now we have a motion to destroy the election ballots, which I suppose we're asking Secretary Treasurer Morris and Deputy Superintendent Whitten to delete the text messages. Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, just a point of order, Chair. Just to clarify, we have not had a report out of the number of votes for each candidate. And should we not be doing that before we destroy any text messages?
I suppose we could. We've sort of moved beyond that at this stage. I'm just accepting the Secretary Treasurer's reporting. I'm not sure, as it was pointed out, there's no requirement at this point. We've done it in the past. Happy to do it. Trustee or Secretary Treasurer?
Since the amendment did not pass, I've not been keeping track of the number of ballots. And I have been destroying the texts as I go in order to make room for new ones for no confusion.
So sorry, just a point of clarification then, Chair. We not, as a board, just vote to vote out the number of votes each candidate received?
No.
And Trustee McNally's amendment was simply to point to the area of Robert's rules?
Trustee Duncan, I believe I clarified that with Trustee McNally, and she said no, that the way that I understood it was incorrect, which is why the way that we are. So I'm sorry that there isn't clarity on that. But what I'm hearing from the Secretary Treasurer is that she's not able to report the votes. I don't know if Deputy Whitten has the results. I'm sure it's close in all cases. Deputy Whitten, are you able to provide us with the results?
I can, but it would take me a bit to go through all of my texts that I have listed.
Do you want to recess for a moment?
Would you like to make a motion to recess, Trustee Duncan?
Well, I think it's a pretty basic level of transparency that I think our public expects, and I think we should expect from ourselves when it comes to, the number of votes that each candidate received. And frankly, I apologize for, I guess, my confusion. I assumed that was not up for debate, but simply whether or not we were going to point to Robert's rules as our guiding set of rules when it came to anything that's not clearly enunciated in our bylaws, our policy, our regulations. So yeah, I think that we should take a moment and do that.
Yep. As I pointed out, the only time I've been on the board where we haven't reported the results is when we moved a motion not to, and that was last year. So I'm fine to take 5 minutes to let them put it together. And I apologize to Secretary Treasurer Morris and Deputy Deb Whitten that we were not clear on what the intentions were there. So why don't we just take a couple minutes? We've already taken a significant amount of time out of this meeting to do this work. So let's make sure we do it right.
Hopefully it's just once a year.
Well, we get to do it next month as well for standing committees. I have a feeling that we may be by Zoom at that time as well. Okay, I'll return. How about we add ease everybody for say 5 minutes? 8:23. don't see, are we back with results?
Nope, still tallying.
Oh, okay.
Jordan, do you want to consider having Sean present while they're tallying and then circle back to this?
I was just thinking that if, do any trustees have an issue with that? If we move forward to A6A, speak up if you do. Otherwise, we're going to welcome Sean Boulding. Thank you so much for being here, and I apologize for the wait.
No problem. Thank you for allowing me to have a few minutes to brag or share a little bit about my school. So again, my name is Sean Boulding. I'm principal at Gordon Head Middle School, and I just thought I'd take a few minutes just to talk about kind of the learning journey that we've been on for almost the last years. We kind of take a look at where we are as a school and some of the areas that we're looking to focus on in the next short while. So I would say we really started this work in earnest probably last January and February, and as a staff, kind of taking a look at the areas that we've been working on really came into three kind of focus for us. And one was around literacy, really with a focus on writing. And that information really came to us some work that we did around the FSA testing last year and the results that we saw from our students in their writing. The other focus areas around STEM are science, technology, engineering, and math. It's been an area of interest mainly that's been driving this from our students and our staff as we've engaged in Pathways and Partnership program within the district and taking a look at opportunities for middle-aged students through that venue. And the one that was really kind of, I guess at the time, we didn't realize it was going to be as important as it is now, but it's a social emotional learning. And lo and behold, after we decided to make that really, I would say, actually continue it as a focus or a goal within our school, soon be thereafter that COVID hit. And so that became really relevant for us. And Andy, thank you for moving slides along here. So if we could go to the next one for me, thank you. So yeah, if we could go to the second slide there, Andy, that was the part that I just spoke to.
Okay, thank you. Just put this full screen. There we go. That should be presenting slides now.
Okay, yeah, the next slide, please, Andy. So when COVID hit, and certainly in the spring of last year, I wouldn't say that this was necessarily a conscious effort on our parts, even though it was in the back of our minds as we re-navigated what school was going to look like and in and out and whether our kids were returning. But certainly in September, we knew that when we were coming back, that we knew that the landscape was going to be very different for our students. And things that we read about and understood over the summer, we really started to realize. And so we knew that with our kids, many of which being away from school for 5 months, we knew with all the protocols through society that our kids were feeling an increased sense of isolation, a number of kids feeling the effects of depression, increased sense of loneliness, and an even greater connection to the digital world, gaming and social media. We really were concerned about all of our kids. I would say in particular, some of our boys that we certainly know, and that all of a sudden those individual healthy peer-to-peer connections, many of them were happening over the computer, and many of them happening over, and I put a part of the slide here, Fortnite, because we learned in talking to our kids, the number of hours that they were engaged in these activities was really quite concerning. And it was going to be a significant shift for them moving back into school, of giving up that social media and digital platforms to those face-to-face ones. We also understood really quickly that when school started up, to be as safe as possible and with all the protocols that you folks are all aware that we're undertaking, that we knew that many of those protocols were really going to be separating kids out, to keep them separate, put them in cohorts, And in effect, it was really, again, even though we were back and there were those face-to-face contacts, but it was really, again, separating kids out and moving them sometimes away from some of the peers that they were so excited about re-engaging with. And so all of those became paramount for us. And as much as we had those other content areas around literacy, which we are doing some work, and the STEM activities, really it's been the social emotional well-being that we've really focused on. And if you could go to the next slide for me, please. And so some of you may have been aware of these different components of social emotional learning, and we're really taking a look at each of them and turning them into daily practice. And through the instruction, well, taking a look at these areas, and our district has really been promoting social emotional well-being for the last couple of years. The focus for our grade 6 and 7 students has been around physical activity, and we've had PICE group come in and working with our teachers to help support our students in that end. And we've also, for our grade 8 students, have snapshots, which are typically these monthly bulletins that take on different themes that we work through with our students and we share with our parents. They've been really, really helpful, really useful. There's been a lot of uptake with those opportunities. But we thought we needed to take it further as a school, given where we were. And so we engaged in what I would refer to as direct instruction, or methods to provide recognition and intervention strategies for our students. So it wasn't just talking about it, but it was giving kids tools specifically so that they'd be able to self-monitor themselves, accept what they were going through, and then come up with strategies as they felt they were kind of going through different times. We also really believed in indirect instruction, or methods to provide opportunities for students to re-engage with one another. And so some of those I would call are really informal opportunities where students have the opportunity again to be meeting face-to-face in positive, proactive type ways. And then I would say our advisory program that we always have in middle school, which would be a blend between that direct and indirect instruction. And it's a real purposeful time during each and every day that we take pause and we reconnect with one another. And we talk about what's going on for our kids so that we can sometimes, and I don't want to say normalize the behavior that we all kind of go to the same place, but understanding that we're all going through something that's really unique. And sometimes there's comfort in understanding that we're not alone in it. And as well as sharing some of the things that work for one another. And so that's been really helpful as well. Next slide, please, Andy. With respect to direct instruction, one of the resources that we came across is through Open Parachute, which is a Canadian resource that provides health curriculum programs that teach clinically proven skills to help the mental health of youth. And so again, through our advisory program, we found this resource. It's aimed and targeted specifically for students middle school years, so grades 6, 7, and 8. And our advisory programs went through this resource, and there's 13 or 14 different clips that go through. Many of the, and the person that you see here is a clinical psychologist that is expert in working with youth. And our classes would go through these little modules if they would, and many of them would start off by interviewing kids. Some of the kids were actually from Vancouver Island. And it just talked about the experiences that these kids have had over the last, well, since COVID hit. And then the clinical psychologist would go on and give kind of the clinical view of what was going on, again, to kind of normalize or understand that these students were not in it alone, and that what they were going through was normal and natural given the times. And then gave really strong feedback and skills as to what kids could do when they were going through these times. And a lot of these video clips were basically starting places for group discussions within the classroom. So again, this is part of what we would refer to as direct instruction, that we're talking about the behavior and we're coming up with specific skills and interventions to help students through that. Again, with a common language in the classroom that our students are engaged with their teacher. The second thing that we did, and we're still working our way through it, there's a cost to this, but we've been working through it and we've found it very valuable so far, and it's a mindfulness program, and it's instruction through Tall Tree Integrated Health. So we have a health practitioner, if you will, coming to the school, and this is a picture of a grade 8 classroom, has worked with most of our grade 8 classes at this point, And there were 8 different sessions that came in, and taught the students a variety of different self-regulation type activities. And whether it's yoga or meditation based or breathing, centering type activities, and really talking to kids about what stress and anxiety is, how it manifests itself, and then tools and strategies to help work through it. Part of the program, as you see in a classroom here, was that this class was actually after the facilitator from Tall Tree came in, and this is a classroom teacher just doing this as part of their daily routine, which is important. Again, having somebody come in, giving us the skills and tools to be able to work through this, and then as a collective, employing those strategies and working through it. So those are the 2 major undertakings that we've done as far as what I would refer to direct instruction, talking about the issues and problems that our youth are seeing, and then giving them physical and tangible strategies to work through them. Next slide, please, Andy. The next program, as I talked about before, is our advisory program. And really advisory works best when there's a strong relationship among all the people in the class. And as you see here too, it's a little bit tighter than normal, because when I came in to talk to the class and asked if I could take their picture, they all wanted to be in the picture and scooted together a little bit more tightly. But many of our classes, in particular our grade 8 classes, they start every morning. They move the desks aside and they start in a circle. Often what they'll do is they'll just go person to person to person, talking about how things are going for them, what are their strengths or the things that are going well, and what are the stretches and challenges that they're facing. And as the conversations that have started day 1 and as we go through, it really is quite incredible, the honesty that our kids speak to. And they share information, and this is just one of the many quotes, as you can hopefully read from where you are, and this is just feedback from one of our students saying this would be helpful because if you're ever stressed or anxious, this will clear your mind and body, and it's amazing for your well-being. So kids are now really starting to understand the language and understanding that the different strategies that they're beginning to employ and talk about are making positive effect to them as individuals and within the classroom. Next slide, please, Andy. Some of the indirect instruction that we've been doing is it's really important for us, and as a school, we've always been participated in daily physical activity, which for the most part has been part of your regular PE program that's most often indoors, certainly in the winter months, but outdoors as well. This year, we've made more of a concerted effort to get outside. Certainly, it makes sense given COVID times. But we also live in a neighborhood of Gordon Head, and we have Mount Doug Park that's really quite close nearby. And so we're engaging in all of our classes are outside, and I would say it's even beyond our phys ed program. It's just to get outside, breathe in the fresh air, and engage in nature as much as possible. The other thing that we've done, because like many schools now, that we have staggered lunch periods, and sometimes getting out and about and different activities. Typically, we'd have our gym open at lunch, but it's not available because there's PE classes going on. So on days that the weather is not terrible, students are always outside, but when the weather does change, we've invested in purchased a number of board games. Again, opportunities for kids to be meeting and having conversations face to face, replacing those digital connections that kids too often refer to. And so our school, like many others, has an off and away policy with respect to cell phones unless teachers invite students to have them out. And so again, we've really invested in some of these board games, and some of them, quite frankly, are ones that I grew up playing, but it's amazing how quickly kids engage in them and how much they enjoy them. And so that's been a big hit for our students this year. Next slide, please, Andy. Couple of pictures here that I just grabbed. So for sure, extracurricular activities as we find our way with COVID, and a large part of our schools are those extracurricular activities. They certainly look differently these days. You can see on the left side, it's students playing badminton, and so we have them in their cohorts, and it's easier to identify them when they're wearing a penny. So it's opportunities for them to be out and physically active and engaged in some of the things that they really enjoy doing. The other thing that we have is, again, we live close to near Mount Doug Park. And a couple of these pictures we grabbed because, again, daily activities that we do have our students out in the community, and sometimes often they do venture over to Mount Doug Park and through the park area, which is a really nice thing for us to have. One of the things as we work through, again, many of you likely know that we have 3 different programs running at the school, like most others given COVID, that we have a few of our students, we only have about 3 or 4 that are engaged in remote learning that aren't physically connected to our school on a weekly basis. We have approximately 40 students that are in a hybrid program, and they're with us 2 mornings. Typically, it's a little bit longer than a morning a week. And then our regular program that students are with us all day and every day. And one of the things that we heard very clearly from our remote and our hybrid kids is the real desire to keep connected to our school and keep connected with one another. And so the pictures that you see on the nature walks are actually kids in our hybrid program on Fridays. What we've done is there is no expectation. There's an invitation to our students, and we invite out. Because we know that those kids, when they're only coming so infrequently, they are losing connection with their peers and their classmates. And so we invite them, if their families are okay with kids interacting against just within their cohort. But we meet with them, and the 2 teachers meet with them in places like Mount Doug Park or in different little walks in the community. Again, for no other reason, just to be out, getting a breath of fresh air and reconnecting with their peers. So again, it's not part of a PE program or anything like that. It's just trying to build on connections. Andy, next slide, please. Oh, I think that might have been it. One of the other things that, yeah, no, that's okay, Andy. One of the other things that we've also done, just to finish off, folks, and is we've really found that our kids, as we've been outside more active, we find them re-engaging with a lot of different activities that we haven't seen in a while, and just that aspect of play. There was a slide earlier that we've developed a Frisbee golf course on our school grounds, and it's as simple as a rope and a bucket that we hang from various places around the school grounds, and kids tossing Frisbees. And so we have a number of these activities, and the joy in it is yes, that they're out being physically active, but you just see the level of engagement, how much they're enjoying being back and connected with one another. And so we want to foster that as much as possible. And that's really a lot of the work that we've been focusing on to date. So I just thought I'd share that with you. I think these are a number of strategies that we've undertaken so far this year. There's a group of our staff that are really engaged in this project, if you will, and we meet every few weeks to talk about what's working, what's not, and other ways that we can have our students connected. And we're constantly taking a look at those types of activities for them, because as we all know and believe that when kids are connected to their school, they're going to typically be more successful in school academically and all those other areas. And what better time than, given the times we are right now, to really put our focus into something like this. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you folks might have, or any thoughts and opinions you might like to share.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think Trustee McNally, you had your hand up, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shab, for recognizing me. I want to make 2 comments first and then just ask a short question. I'm just so pleased to see the mindfulness initiatives happening in the middle years in grade 8. It's like having a user manual for being human, which I certainly didn't get in school, and things might have gone better if I had. So the fact that young men are exposed to the aspects of mindfulness, and that it's okay to feel anxious, and the okayness of being human, I think really counters the horrible soup that men often have to swim in, that soup of toxic masculinity, which is man up and don't show any feelings. I think that this program is really subtly working against that toxic masculinity message, and I'm just so happy about that. I was talking to my son about that the other night, and obviously he's an adult and he wasn't aware of the concept, and he glommed right onto it. The other part of it is the question I had was, what part does Pisces play in the mindfulness, or was Pisces mostly helping out with the physical education aspects?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Pisces has been engaged. This is our second year with the folks, and today actually just wrapped up our 5-week kind of time with those folks. And it really has just been a focus on physical literacy, if you will. And so the importance of being out getting physically active. And so working with our teachers and lending their expertise. So kind of that cognitive, social, emotional part. Historically has been with more of our grade 8s, but we've taken what we've learned from that over the last couple of years, and we're really blending it into our 6, 7s. And so the Pisces part really has been the physical literacy part at this point. Yeah. Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you so much for this report. This is what makes me excited about education, is really hearing about school connectedness and social emotional learning. And I especially like hearing about how your staff is modeling themselves these behaviors. It's not just being taught to the students and teachers sort of hanging over top, but that they're willingly getting down on the floor and modeling these behaviors to their students, so that it does become a lifelong practice that they can carry beyond. It's not just something you do in grade 8, right? And really learning those skills. I also really like your daily check-in. I think that is fantastic for people to learn how to do that and to be present in their moments and really within themselves, and to learn that empathy that we often miss in the earlier elementary school grades about how others are feeling, and how every day we do come into the room with our different biases and feelings and issues that have occurred. So that also makes me really excited. Hearing that so many of your staff are interested in social emotional learning, I am aware that SELBC has got a very large chapter or following. They're very strong in the Lower Mainland, but not so much here on Vancouver Island. And I'm wondering if there's, and I believe that there is opportunity, if there is a lot of individuals or teachers and counselors on this side that are interested in social emotional learning, about connecting with SELBC and making a Vancouver Island chapter. So I guess I just want to put out that encouragement that if we can create that network here in the Lower South Island, that I just see that this getting those supports that are really directed at how do we create those tools and model those tools to our student, and sharing that wealth amongst teachers would be fantastic. So I just encourage your group, if they are interested, to look at SELBC and look at making a Vancouver Island chapter. So thank you again. Fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. Trustee Duncan, I think you had your hand up.
I did, yeah. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing all of the good work that you're doing and the staff are doing. And I really wanted to just say what a breath of fresh air it is in these difficult times to hear about all the endeavors that we're taking part in as a school district when it comes to getting the kids outside and in nature, and really honoring in a real practical way the connection between wellness and nature for our kids. I love the idea that you're also really being deliberate in reaching out to some of our students who are participating in hybrid learning and trying to find unique ways to include them in some of these enriching opportunities, and to ensure that they feel as connected as possible despite that remoteness. So yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to everything you're up to.
Thank you very much. Oh, Trustee Ryan Painter, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have too much to add more than what Trustee Duncan and Whitaker have said. Just to really highlight, I think, from a high level of what looks like you're really actively doing is internalizing that mental health literacy piece and really making that come out and make that live within not just what staff, but what students are doing, so that they can kind of come through life understanding how to engage, interact, build that resilience, and really understand what it is to be emotionally, socially well. It's really exciting to see that. I think you're hearing that amongst the other trustees here tonight, and what a perfect time to highlight the importance of getting outdoors, especially with COVID. It's so super important that you're bringing that to us here. And just to see that reflected back out in the school community is really, really heartening. So a very, very job well done.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to hear from about what's going on in our school. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And I'll move backwards in the agenda back up to A3. And I'll turn it over to our scrutineers to report the results. Secretary Treasurer.
Great, thank you. So for chair, the votes were 5-4 in favor of Trustee Waters. The vice chair was acclaimed, BCPC was acclaimed, and the BCSTA rep was 5-4 in favor of Trustee Painter, Ryan Painter.
Thank you so much. We're learning about how to do this electronically. It's a little more complicated than at first blush. So now if we're at A3E, if the trustees want to destroy the ballots, you could make a motion to do so. It's simply recommended. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Ferris, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Could I have somebody move approval of the minutes for October 26th? Thank you, Trustee Ryan Painter, seconder by Trustee Leonard. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And again, because we're...
Can I just, in the approval of the minutes, I think if you look at D3, I just wanted to say, is it possible to move, we have the exit of the director right within the advocacy ad hoc committee piece. Can we just move it above so it doesn't look like she's left because of my report? Thank you.
Sure.
Just saying.
Yeah. But I just wanted to say, so I'm calling that unanimous. That's what I saw. It is difficult sometimes as people move around the screen. So I'm going to call all the votes out loud, much like we did our election votes. So if I call it wrong, please speak up, because this is going to be the record that goes into the minutes. So that's the opportunity to make sure that it's correct. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
Chair, Trustee Painter, point of order or privilege, perhaps. I'm having a lot of difficulties with my connection tonight, so I've got the camera off just to try to reduce bandwidth. I'll shout out ayes or nays in any votes, though.
Fantastic, and you could always text as well if that helps. Although we know how well that works. By one person, it'll be easier than 9. Trustee Whitaker, did you have a business arising from the minutes?
Just a business arising from the minutes. My understanding was that at our last meeting, where we were talking about security and construction, that the Secretary Treasurer was going to look into the contracts to determine who was responsible for the security and for the camera and what that cost to the district would be. So I just want to bring that back up, that if we could get, and I don't know if you want me to answer that in trustee questions, but I think it comes out of the minutes too. So I can do it either way.
Sure.
Treasurer?
Yep. So I can bring that information to the next ops meeting, where we'll bring the whole deployment plan, the PIA, etc.
Okay.
Is that okay if we do a fulsome report then?
Yeah, no, thanks. I just wanted it to not get lost through the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no business arising from the minutes, and we have already enjoyed A6, so we are moving straight to correspondence. There are 4 items of correspondence here on our agenda. And then I also wanted to highlight one that I plan to be able to pass around and can't. So maybe I'll share that and then ask if you have any questions on any of them. I received a bunch of handwritten letters to me as an individual from some students at Strawberryvale who wanted to express their ideas about things that we could do to support them in doing outdoor learning. So it's a bunch of handwritten letters. I've responded and asked them to work with their teacher to send us a formal letter that we could forward on to the budget process. It's always so important to hear how students want to, you know, what they think will improve their learning and how we can support that. So I wanted to encourage them. If I'd known we were going to do this by Zoom, I might have copied these and attached them. But anyways, I do have them, and they're very astute and some fantastic suggestions in there. And so hopefully we'll hear more from them. And any other principals who might be listening, do know your students can certainly write to us with their ideas as well. Does anybody have any questions about the correspondence under B1, 2, 3, 4, or what I just added? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a request, if you wouldn't mind having the letters scanned and then emailed to the board so we can have a read through in lieu of any formal correspondence. I would certainly be interested to hear some of these ideas from these lovely students.
Trustee Duncan, would you like this for, because these are written to me as an individual, is that, would you like all individual correspondence? Or I'm happy to share these with you, but just I know that you're concerned about process, so just wanting to understand your direction.
No, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought they were directed to the board, and so just wanted to suggest that a scanned and emailed copy could go to the board. I didn't realize that they were addressed to you individually.
Well, that's why I asked them to write to us as a board, and my response included the fact that I was only one of 9. So if they want those bat boxes and mason bees, then they've got to write to all of us.
Yeah, no kidding.
I want those mason bees.
I know you do, Trustee Whitaker.
Smart kids, all about the bees. I do have questions.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so within the correspondence, I don't know if you want me to pull them to discuss or just pull out each one, but specifically B1, the South Jubilee, they're asking, I mean, are we going to reply? Number one, I guess my question is and where they're discussing what consultation, are they looking for some sort of consultation? What is our expected consultation process as we move forward? Or maybe that is too early, but can we reply to them with something? And then I guess I also wanted to just be able to pull the VC PAC letter to ensure that we have responded to them. And I think in our previous meeting, we did discuss some of these items, but I wondered if we wanted to discuss some of them in public, specifically the View Royal Playground, the outside play space equity, and how to prioritize that, as well as some issues around COVID that they mentioned. So I don't know how you want to handle all that.
Thank you.
But I want to know where we respond.
I agree. The 2 letters here that we need to respond to are at B1 and B4. So perhaps we can discuss at B1 here around the consultation process. Secretary Treasurer, did you want to speak to this? I didn't want to respond without discussing as a board, but I think my suggested response would be to give them some information about what our process will be and how they can be involved. Secretary Treasurer?
So currently we're waiting for the city and city council to come back to us to tell us whether they wish to seek heritage status for that building or maintain it or create that status. Until then, we haven't approved a consultation process for Bank Street at all. We are awaiting some decision making from the city, at which point they'll either say that they don't want to maintain the building as heritage, in which case we would like to demolish it, and we would consult on that.
Trustee Leonard?
So could a clear way forward just be to acknowledge receipt of their letter and say we are currently waiting for some information from the city before the board can make any decisions about the properties in question, and that we will keep them in the loop and there will be consultation?
That's essentially what I was picturing. Trustee Ryan Painter?
Yeah, just reiterating what Trustee Leonard has said, I think that's totally appropriate. And I think from where I sit, that makes sense. They'll understand that we have, just like the city has, is a consultation process, and just helping them know how they fit as part of that, I think would be beneficial.
Okay, so would you like a motion to that effect? It's not, I mean, it sounds very straightforward. I don't feel like I need a motion to provide that kind of a response. Just wanted to provide the opportunity.
Can reflect by consensus if you like.
That'd be great. And then at B4, we have a letter from our VC PAC introducing their new executive, who I'd love to congratulate. And then they provide a lot of really great ideas, which some of them I think will be fantastic for budget process. Trustees, do you want to have an opportunity to discuss us or provide direction on how you'd like me to respond? I understand this is going to be, that they're going to come forward with this kind of feedback monthly, which is fantastic. It'll provide us with a real rich opportunity for dialogue.
Sorry, Chair, was that me? You cut out.
It was, sorry,
Okay,
I muted myself too fast.
You know, I really appreciate what Trustee Whitaker said, and in looking at the letter, there's pieces here that I think, you know, just thinking of it with the hat of the chair of the equity committee on, there's things that I think fit well in that committee's mandate. So I'm not necessarily a solution, but just a thought that there is stuff here that I think fits really well within the work that committee does. So yeah, I think there could be a way for us to maneuver and navigate some of these things towards the equity committee if there was some desire to do that.
Trustee McNally?
Among the suggestions to consider some of the well, let me start again. Some of the suggestions in the VC PAC letter certainly point toward being considered as part of a budget consideration discussion, but and possibly some of them might benefit from discussion in the equity committee, but some of them need answers right now. And I'm looking at, you know, the hot lunch programs. Some are allowing and some aren't. Field trips, some schools are allowing and some aren't. Where a PAC event or other event is or is not allowed. There's some things that need to be straightened out ASAP, and I'm not quite sure how to pick those out of the letter, but I wouldn't like to see this whole letter shunted off to budget season or the equity committee. I'd like the chair to address, along with senior administration, the questions that could be answered very soon, and hopefully some of these can be.
Trustee Whitaker?
Actually, I think Trustee Duncan was well ahead of me, but.
Oh, Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my suggestion would be somewhat along the lines of Trustee McNally. I think that we need to pick out the urgent and one might call quick wins, because hopefully it's just a matter of communication where there are differences, and there doesn't need to be from school to school. And then I would suggest that we then divide up the issues according to our standing committees and their terms of reference. So some of them may well be ed policy issues, some of them might be ops issues. And then from there, it may be that one of the committees recommends that a particular issue goes to one of the ad hocs. But that would be my suggestion in terms of process, because there's a lot in this, and I would hate to see any of it lost.
So as our partner at the table, VCPAC has.
Oh, I still want to talk.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to say that they could provide, I understood from the communication that they are going to provide this as a monthly report to us. That it'll be a recurring thing at Ed Policy that provides an opportunity to have that discussion there. So they'll present it Ed Policy and then I want to bring it to us in letter form at the board. So maybe it would be an opportunity to have some conversation at Ed Policy around how they would like us to address the various aspects of this, because there is a lot to it and I don't want to lose any of it either. It could go to various places and certainly we do need to have that conversation, but I'm not sure that this is the best format in which for us to engage with that. I've got Trustee Whitaker.
Thanks. So I'm really excited that this is coming from the DPAC, and I agree we need to figure something out. What my hope is that this can be the beginning of a two-way dialogue and that our timing can be better, that we receive this from the DPAC if it's going to come monthly, because I think that's why this is so big, is because it's the first one. But my hope is that somebody in staff will, or the chair will go through this and be able to answer the pieces that we can, so that then this can go back to the DPAC and that they can have a report out, which will really help them in their conversations, and it will help a lot with building relationships and you know, working together with our parents, I think a little bit better. So maybe if we can get to that place, that as much as we can answer in here, and then hopefully those things that we don't roll back into another response from the DPAC, but as well, maybe we can work with them on timing so that we get the letter, there's enough time for a response so that it can get back to their meeting. So it really feels like a two-way dialogue and not a 3-month turnaround. You know, they send a letter, there's a gap for a month, and then it's the 3rd month before we're talking about it again. So I'm really hopeful with this.
I received this letter on Friday, so
no,
I don't think the turnaround is too fast here, because we can certainly send a letter in response right away. I certainly don't want to make our parents wait 3 months.
Yeah, I don't think it's on our end, and I think maybe Angela can hear that, is that it's about how do we work best with their meeting schedule. I don't think it's on our side. We're going to respond as quickly as we can, but if we're working together with them as to their timeline and ours for their meetings, right?
I also wonder about the opportunity to have a meeting, like to Zoom together and to talk about some of these things, because there is a lot there, and that I would not want to hazard to provide responses as an individual trustee without board direction. So I think this is something that we really need to think about, and perhaps Angela, you and the other VCPAC leadership would be willing to have a conversation with us around what's the best way for us to respond that's going to be meaningful and useful to you.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think that's great. And we would be open to any kind of communication. But I think talking about timing is really important, because we're all so busy, and this is really, you know, unprecedented times we're working in here. So we are definitely willing to make some time, find some time, and
Great, thank you, Angela. So how about I follow up with that, we can have that conversation around how to make the most of this opportunity.
That would be great. I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Okay, so are there any other comments or questions around correspondence, or may I move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, so next up is my report, the chair's report, I believe. Sorry, I'm moving on this agenda. there's my report for you to see. I can add on that earlier today, we received a COVID-related update from the superintendent as well. And so thank you to all the trustees that were able to attend. You know, it is very fast shifting with the new orders. It was great to hear how we're supporting that and really trying to encourage you know, the safest possible practices in our schools and schoolyards at pickup time and all of that. So does anybody have any questions about my November report? Seeing none, I'll move to the work plan that is there at 23 for your information. And again, this is going to be a standing thing on the agenda so that we can all have a sense of what's coming forward. And so we can prepare our questions in advance and have a sense of what to anticipate. Attend December social events as invited is just there to mock us all, because obviously we're not going to be doing that, so very sadly, although I know especially in education land we're all, or you all are very creative, and so I hope you find lots of ways to celebrate the season together and each other. So does anybody have any questions about the annual work plan for December? Okay. So we'll move on to, I don't have any trustee reports this month. So I'll move to education policy and directions. Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So you'll see in the pack-up, we have a copy of the minutes that are a draft. They have not been approved by the committee. And then we have 3 recommended motions from the committee in November. And then you'll note that there is an additional recommended motion from September that we just didn't have in the September board pack-up. And so we're bringing it before the board this month. And Chair, did you want me to read the motions? I'll leave it to you to let me know how you want to proceed.
Thank you so much, Trustee Duncan. I think perhaps we can ask trustees if they'd like to sever any of these, and let's just start with the November 2nd ed policy meetings. Trustee Painter, Ryan Painter.
I'd like to sever C if I could, please.
Thank you. Would A or B, can we move A and B together? That's the MyEd forms and the foundation skills assessment letter. Don't want to sever those. Trustee Whitaker?
Are you looking for someone to move that? I'll move that.
Sure, if everybody's comfortable with doing it all at once. I'm just trying not to race ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, well, we can do them both together if you want. I must say this is my son's grade 4 year, so for the FSAs, this is, I've had to agonize over this, but I think we're ready. So let's move A and B together from ed policy. Do we need a mover and a seconder? Trustee McNally?
I have a question, Chair. I'm reading the agenda on my other laptop, and I'm sorry, I have lost my way. So can you direct me to a page?
We are on page 3 of 63 of the agenda.
Thank you.
You tell that.
So under the education policy and directions section, we're at the draft minutes are at A, and then at B, the recommended motion, we're going to move A and B together.
I'm sorry, Chair, but I'm looking at D, board committee reports.
Yep, and under that is education policy.
Yeah, it says Chair Duncan advised that there is nothing to report from the October 5th ed policy and direction meetings as quorum was not met.
Trustee McNally, you're in the minutes.
Okay.
So just go up further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. B, correspondence.
C, trustee
reports.
D, board committee reports, ed policy.
Yes, and on my agenda, it says Chair Duncan advised, etc.
You're on October. You're in the minutes.
No, I'm not. I'm on page 3, November 23rd, A, and I'm looking down to B, which is correspondence, and I'm looking down to C, which is trustee reports, and then I'm looking down to D, board committee reports.
What does it say under trustee reports? Does it say November report?
Okay, Chair, I stand corrected. I've got it now. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. It's important that we're all on the same page.
Literally.
Literally. So could I have a mover for A and B? Thank you, Trustee Ferris and Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion on these motions? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that looks to be unanimous. Any opposed? No, okay, that was unanimous. Excellent. So now we'll move to motion C, which is on religious accommodation. The motion is coming from the committee, so we do not need a mover or seconder. Do we have a speaker to this motion? Trustee Rob Painter, did you want to open on this? I think you're the originator.
I don't know if he's here.
You just unmuted, so I thought he was getting ready.
Can you hear me?
Speakers? Yeah, we can.
Oh, my apologies. Apparently, new computer, new anti-mute devices. The point I would like to make is that I myself am agnostic. I do not have any religious affiliations, but I do recognize that this is one of the many dimensions by which people identify themselves. It may not, well, may or may not be as important as gender identity or other protected dimensions or qualities, if you will, characteristics, sorry, there's the word I was looking for, that we have already sought to address. I think that the recommendations that were made at ops or at ed policy went a long ways to clarifying it. I do note that I believe in the first bullet, multi-faith was going to be struck, but I'll refer to whoever was doing the note taking on that one. In the end, this motion is not going to introduce religion to our educational practices. That's clearly not an acceptable thing. But it does, to some degree, levels the playing field for individuals of different cultures and beliefs. And I think more importantly, the intention is to provide guidance to our staff so that they're not left to attempt to puzzle out how to accommodate religious practices, etc., on their own, and that will result in a more equitable practice across the district entirely. Thank you.
Do any of our partner groups want to speak to this before we move into debate? Winona?
It's nice to see the board bringing forward this motion. The new, well, actually, I guess with our collective agreement, we already have a cultural leave that has quite a wide ranging, and provincially they've negotiated an Aboriginal leave. And I think that it's appropriate to be recognizing the needs of people of different faiths and who might need to attend different celebrations. So it's great to see the board bringing this forward.
Trustee Ferris, or let's go to Superintendent Green first.
I just want to reiterate that this is in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that's a baseline that we do follow. And so that is the expectation of all of us in the school system. And if you follow that, it basically is defined as the right to entertain such religious beliefs as a person chooses, the right to declare religious beliefs openly and without fear of hindrance or reprisal, and the right to manifest religious belief by worship and practice or by teaching and dissemination. So it is in our charter. We do follow that. And ultimately, the component of this recommendation for this motion would be to create the calendar. And that would be the differentiation, and to be able to understand what that is and when those are. And there's a level of sensitivity there. I can certainly speak to our nations who feel that they are private on where and when those are. They want the respect for sure. They want us to understand from what they tell us on things like Big House season. But to create a calendar as defined that is would be insensitive to some. So it puts us in a rather uncomfortable position at times with certain religions who want to be private, who have their own belief system and the breadth of it, and certainly our nations who would have some discomfort with this particular part of the motion. But the respect that we respect and understand and provide that respect, all of our staff and teachers follow that through and are already in that place. So it has a bit of an overlap on both that I would like trustees to consider.
Trustee Ryan Painter. Oh, sorry. I think I had
Trustee
Tom
Ferris
first.
was first. Yeah,
Yeah,
Trustee Ferris.
Trustee Ferris, and then Trustee Ryan Painter, and then Trustee Whitaker, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I just like to say that I appreciate Rob bringing this motion to the table. I think that it's always good to have this type of a discussion around the table. But on the other hand, I think the content of the motion is pretty much covered by what our obligations are today. I think that this is something that all of our schools are sensitive to, and that our senior leadership team understand very well. So I think it's really a duplication of what exists already. And for that reason, I'm not inclined to want to go down this road, which I think could be a pretty bumpy road. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ferris. Trustee Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to try. I'm going to try to be succinct. I said most of what I felt about this motion at Ed Policy, and I spoke very clearly as someone who came to Christianity in his 20s. I can't oppose this hard enough. This is a solution in desperate need of a problem, and it's a problem that does not exist. We have staff that are clearly able to manage and mitigate the questions that have come up, the concerns that may have been arisen. They have told us that they can manage this well. I have full and total confidence in staff's ability to manage this as it comes. I find it problematic that religion was compared to gender, but we'll maybe leave that. That in and of itself is a problematic statement, but to me, this is not necessary. It's not needed. It is, to me, as I see it, and people may feel free to agree, but is a incursion into the public school system of explicitly in the motion religious accommodation. It's what the motion is called. It is what it is titled, religious accommodation. And it clearly lays out plainly in the motion that it is about religious accommodation. If we have Christian schools here on the island, if folks want to go to that, they're more than welcome. But we are a public school system enshrined for the public, and we are very clearly laid out in the School Act that religion shall have no incursion into the work that we do. And I feel so strongly about this. I'm pretty much said what I want to say. I think people can understand the point that I'm making, but I hope my colleagues at the table vote this down, because it is, as well-intentioned as it may be, it is ill-advised. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. I've got Trustee Whitaker and then Trustee McNally.
Actually, I'm gonna pass. I was trying to amend this, but I don't know if I can. Thanks.
Trustee McNally?
You may have some struggle with unmuting, which might be a good thing. To address any problems of putting gender and religion in the same sentence, I believe the intent there was to say that they're both protected categories in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And we could have said, oh, let's not have our extensive gender protection policy that we worked a long time on and were considered very progressive to have carried that policy. We could have just said, no, let's not bother. All that's in the charter. But we worked long and hard on that. So I don't see why referring to the fact that religious protection is already in the charter is really valid when we've addressed another issue at length. I have thought a lot about this, and I'm not 100% excited about it, but the fact that it's going to be a discussion amongst, I have to look over here to see the agenda. It'll be, after consultation with the Victoria Multi-Faith Society and Indigenous leadership. If anybody doesn't want their holidays or their observances on there for whatever reasons, of course, that would be honored in the potential policy that the superintendent is being tasked with bringing forward. So I'll support this because it is a committee exploration, and then the superintendent will bring forward a policy for consideration, and it'll come to committee first. So let's explore it, and I hope that the majority of trustees will support this.
Shelley Mimi, would you just raise your hand, or are my eyes playing tricks? No. Trustee Leonard?
I just wanted to say that I couldn't say it any better with what my feelings are than what Ryan had said. So I'm not going to reiterate what he said, but I will not be supporting this motion.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'll keep it brief, but it troubles me that there seems to be some confusion around the table about what are protected classes in the Charter and in the Human Rights Code. So I think that, we want to be having a discussion about a motion from an informed place. And so I'm wondering if it's prudent, given that I can hear that there is some significant confusion around the table about that, whether it's prudent to consider tabling this until we can be clear, all of us clear about what are protected classes and what other school districts are doing and other institutions are doing in order to support staff in practical terms when they are seeking on a case-by-case basis to accommodate a protected class. So I'm going to just put that in the back of my mind, and I'm going to listen to what my other colleagues have to say. But I've got to say that more than I'm concerned about this motion, I'm concerned about what I'm hearing around the table, what I perceive as a lack of clarity about what the charter says and what the Human Rights Code says and how that relates to the motion before us.
Are there any other speakers? Perhaps I can raise a concern that hasn't been raised yet. For me, although I find the motion a little confusing and I'm not entirely clear on what it's doing above and beyond the code and the charter, my main concern here is around what we're asking of our partners and what this consultation will look like in the scale compared to all of the other work that we've directed of the policy committee, of our staff, of our various consultation processes. We're doing consultation around police liaison officers, George J. renaming. I mean, these are very, very big pieces, and these are going to be some of the same partners. And so my concern is around how do we prioritize our work so that it's effective and respectful of our partners, because I feel like, you know, there is an unending capacity either. And so I'm not clear that we have any actual problem here to solve. I agree with Trustee Painter in terms of being a problem solution, looking for a problem. So I can't support this tonight, though I do thank Trustee Rob Painter for bringing it forward. This is coming from a committee, so technically there isn't a closer on debate, but Rob, was there anything you wanted to add before I call the question?
Yeah, if I could. I do recognize that that our staff are actively involved in matters of this sort. Where I think as a district we can support our staff is by having inquiries. We can engage them as well as others, people who are specifically have a specific interest in this, who feel that they have practices that require consideration or accommodation, and we can provide guidance and ideally templates that not only provide a mechanism for accessing that information from families and students, but we also provide guidance to our staff at different levels on how they can appropriately accommodate without running afoul of the direction in the School Act. And I think that's in my mind, a leadership role, and one that the district, the board, is well positioned to take. So,
thank you, Rob. Thank you. So I will call the question, which is, I won't read the entire thing, but this is the motion on religious accommodation at D1BC with the 4 points. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion fails 6-3. So we will move now. Secretary Treasurer, did you get those votes, or would you like me to call them? Got it?
Can you call, please? I only have 2 opposed.
We've got Trustees Painter, Duncan, Rob Painter, Duncan, and McNally in favor. Or yes, in favor.
Thank you.
And the balance opposed.
Right.
Our next motion from Ed Policy is actually from September's Ed Policy, and I think perhaps we had a little procedural blip there in thinking that I'm not really sure what happened, but a standing committee cannot direct an ad hoc committee. This needs to come through the board for the board's direction. And so this is a motion on dispensation for secondary level French immersion students impacted by COVID-19. Are there any speakers to the motion from our partner groups? Seeing none. Trustees, any speakers to this motion? Trustee Ferris.
Thank you, Chair. I've mulled this over quite a bit, and I really don't think that we should be asking the ministry or the minister to water down the requirements for French immersion. I don't think it's necessary. And I think that we need to leave it alone. Really, I just would be very concerned about this going forward. Thank you.
Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, and I think. Thank you. When this came up, similar to Trustee Ferris, my concern as well is not devaluing the double dogwood. If anything, I would like us to focus on providing those supports for these students rather than focusing on adjusting the dogwood. Because I think that's far more relevant, is that we're looking for additional supports. I understand that it is the language-based programs and resources online that we're struggling to get, but so for me, I would much rather be focusing on the solution rather than, I guess, this particular direction.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that the motion, the recommendation from the committee was to refer the matter for consideration to advocacy. So the committee didn't recommend that the board adopt the motion. We recommended that we refer the motion for consideration by advocacy, who then can bring forward recommendations as it sees fit to the board for consideration or through the standing committee. So I don't know if we really need to concern ourselves with debating the motion, but rather considering the referral.
Trustee Reinpainter?
Yeah, just actually thinking about what Trustee Duncan said and giving some more thought. So maybe I'll come back.
Okay, I don't see any further speakers.
Chair, yeah.
Sure, Trustee Rob Painter, and then I'll call the question.
Thank you. And right off the bat, I completely agree with Trustee Whitaker that focusing on solutions and getting the supports in place would be the preferable approach. My concern is, however, that for students who, because of immunocompromised circumstances, for example, there simply is no solution. We don't have the capacity within the district to provide French immersion instruction. And as a consequence, as it stands, it's a done deal for students this year that could quite possibly limit their opportunity to complete with the double dogwood, specifically because of the limitations that are put on us because of the COVID environment. So I do think that there is merit in having the advocacy committee consider this, determine whether or not there are other avenues that we should be pursuing, but to suggest that it doesn't need to be addressed, I think really is ignoring the impact that COVID and the fact that we are in some respects the victims of our own success, having such an effective program, having such demand on French immersion teachers that we simply aren't in a position to accommodate online support at the current time. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the question. All those in favor of referring this motion to the advocacy committee? All those opposed?
Sorry, Chair, I was an aye.
Okay, can I see the ayes again? We've got Rob, Angie, Nicole, Diane, and opposed. And are you abstaining, Trustee Whittaker? Okay, so the motion fails. And now we shall move to the operations committee, Trustee Leonard. And Trustee Leonard, can I ask you, as brand new vice chair, do you mind chairing for a minute while I run out of the room and back in again? Thank you.
Okay, take your time. Sure. Thank you very much. So we're going to the Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Draft minutes are there for you for your information from the last meeting. We don't have very many. We only have one motion. We've spent a lot of time working through policy, so we limited our time to an hour at the last meeting. And from that, this was the only motion that has come forward. We're still working through a number of documents. So the motion from the committee is that the Board of Education of SD 61 approve the new policy 6161.5, instructions school gardens, and further the direct superintendent to develop an administrative procedure. Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions from trustees? Trustee Ryan Painter.
Not a question, just saying I support this this policy. I was fortunate enough to in a previous life and as a trustee tour various school neighborhood communities with Peninsula Streams, which is doing amazing work with rain gardens, and I think this complements that work well, as well as food gardens, vegetable gardens, all of that stuff. I think it's super important, super pivotal. And one of the very first things that I did as a trustee-elect was go through Colquitt's and eat from their garden. The kids were so proud and were so excited to have us come and eat the food that they made themselves. It was quite remarkable. So I'm really excited to see this policy come forward, and I'm all too happy to support it.
Awesome, thank you for that. The expectation from the policy committee and from the operations policy committee as well was that the administrative procedure would then go into the manual and be posted online. And we had looked at the one from the Vancouver School Board as our template to begin with, and it's like 19 pages. So we expect that to be a lot of good information in that document. And but the policy itself is short and sweet. So I'll turn it back over to Board Chair Waters, as I think she's back in the picture.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Are there any other speakers to the motion, or are we calling the question?
I think we're ready for the question.
Okay, all those in favor of approving new policy 6161.5? All those opposed? Abstain?
Chair,
So
aye.
That's aye in favor?
Aye in favor.
Okay, that's unanimous then. Thank you so much.
And the only other item from the policy subcommittee, which is not a motion, is regulation 3323, purchasing services for information only.
And I would also note here is the code of conduct policy that was also at our operations meeting, and trustees agreed to send feedback in writing. And so please do that. And if you need me to resend it, just let me know. Because the more we can get feedback in advance will help us make a better policy or bylaw. So now we're at D1 Audit Committee. To who's gonna make that report? Trustee Painter, Leonard?
Well, the water flows downhill to us. Oh man, no, I've blown it. Associate Secretary Treasurer, no, Katrina. So why don't we do that?
Katrina?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, at the audit committee meeting that was held on November 4th, we did review the September 2020 quarterly financial report. There's quite a detailed memo that is in there. And I won't go through everything as I know you have a very full agenda. But basically where we're at in the September 2020 quarter is that we're slightly down in revenue and expenses from where we were last year, mainly as a result of the ongoing impact of COVID-19. I don't know if anyone has any questions of the report or the memo. And the motion in the end is just that the board accept the September 2020 quarterly financial report as presented to the audit committee.
Would you like to move the motion? Thank you, Trustee Ryan Painter. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Leonard, is there any discussion? Thank you to the audit committee and all of our staff who worked on this. I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
And that's unanimous. So we'll move to our district leadership team reports under E, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent. Oh, wait. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yes, I think at the call of the agenda, at the approval of the agenda, we added D3AB, SJ Burnside update project report.
You are correct.
Okay.
I apologize for moving us along. And I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So this report is considered a handout tonight. It will be placed on the December 7th ops agenda because we know that the stakeholders and the public has not had a chance to see this report. I'm just going to give a brief overview now, and then we'll discuss it more fully on December 7th when everybody's had a chance to review it. So, so the intent tonight is to provide the report, a short presentation, and place on the December 7 ops agenda. First, I would like to thank the Associate Secretary Treasurer, the Director of Facilities, and the Associate Director of Facilities for their work on this report. We met between, I'd say, 3 and 5 times to compile the report. SJ Burnside upgrade was and this report results from a June 22nd regular open board meeting motion moved by Trustee Duncan. And it's to report out on the SJ Burnside project, which was to move the alternative learning center, link, community ed, et cetera, from continuing ed, et cetera, from SJ Willis to SJ Burnside. Resulting in SJ Willis becoming a swing space for Vic High and future projects. The SJ Burnside was an internal project with no ministry funding. And so the report goes through the budget and expenditure over time. And the overage on the project was $2 million and how that was attended to in terms of covering that deficit and what other funding sources are available as we go forward. And really the report culminates in 8 recommendations at the end, in terms of how to improve internal controls and approvals as we move forward with some of our major and minor capital projects. And I would say many of the recommendations have been implemented already. And so we look forward to the discussion at the December 7th ops meeting. And this will be posted to the website as a handout tomorrow, and it will be placed on the December 7th agenda in the pack-up.
Thank you so much, Secretary Treasurer. And I assume we are okay with saving discussion for ops when we can all dig into the report and have a proper discussion. I'm gonna have to mute the gerbils on their wheel behind me. Yes. Sorry about that background noise. So now I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair. For my monthly report is there for your perusal. Just a couple of highlights that I certainly want to recognize, and that's we had the first time ever elders lunch here at Tolmie Building. Even in the time of COVID, they're very keen to begin this work. I really recognize our amazing people in our Indigenous department. Shelley and Craig have done an amazing job with linking to our communities, honoring our elders, and to provide them with a lunch just to start a conversation about how we want to involve our elders in our educational moving forward, and certainly within the strategic plan. It was absolutely an honor to have them here. So Shelley, great work. Really recognize the amazing work you've done. It was a huge honor just to be there and have that space and time. Also, a great accomplishment was to be able to be a part of the Victoria Police Department's service awards for our 2 students who did end up being a part of saving another student's life. And so to watch them being honored by the police department and being recognized for the amazing work they did, and staff as well, but students, of course, were the first lead in, so huge accomplishments. It's a busy time, COVID, trying to circle back and get close as we can to normal, and then always knowing that there's shifting going on. And the third scenario that I absolutely want to recognize is our amazing partners. Several of them are on the call tonight, and the willingness always to be very responsive. If anything shifts in health around COVID, I can reach out and call at any time, and we can have conversations. We have a meeting today on updates and being on the same page to try and keep our anxiety level as low as we can and be on the same page. And so amazing work going on. It doesn't end. I know people are tired and they've gone above and beyond. So I want to recognize the amazing work that our partners have done to get us this far into COVID. We're not finished yet, but great working together. So hopefully if the trustees have any questions, I'm certainly open, but that they would receive my superintendent's report.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Would somebody like to move that we receive the superintendent's report as presented? Thank you, Trustee Leonard, Trustee Ryan Painter. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Wonderful. Moving on to the local education agreement, I would ask Colin to please speak to this.
At the October board meeting, I had neglected to provide you with a draft copy of the local education agreement that we are hoping to strike with the Songhees Nation. And having seen that, I'm hoping that at this meeting that you are in a position to consider the motion before you regarding the authorization of that agreement.
Thank you so much. Trustee Ferris, Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Ferris?
Oh, just to approve the motion to pass.
Thank you so much. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Is there any discussion on the motion? Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank, I'm sorry.
Associate Superintendent Roberts. It's that time of night.
I was like, what on earth is that title? I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward and the accountability and transparency and bringing it forward at this time. I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to send that thanks. And everyone, thank you ever so much for your work on that, because I read the document and I think it's great. So thank you.
Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I also wanted to extend my warmest and deepest thanks to Mr. Roberts, Associate Superintendent Mr. Roberts, for circling back and really having such an eye and commitment to governance around this and to the importance that it has for us as a board. And I've had the great pleasure of reading through the document. I will be supporting the motion, and I very much look forward to us seeing this document come to life in our practices, in our strategies, in our planning before the board, and really as a spraying off point to work on building those relationships of trust and mutual respect moving forward. So thank you very much to you and to the team.
Thanks. I'm not seeing any further questions or comments. So thank you again, Associate Superintendent Roberts, and to the whole team for working on this. And I will call the question if I can find it. Yes, and thanks so much to everyone at Songkeys for their work as well. So we're moving that the board authorized signing of the LEA between SD61 and Songkeys Nation. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Thank you so much. And I'll hand it back to Secretary Treasurer.
Are we doing school closure
policy? It's supposed to be the school closure process.
E1C?
Yes.
That's under the superintendent's report?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Superintendent?
It's all good. So trustees will see, as we've mentioned in the past, that we are looking at a shoreline upgrade and need to go through a process as we navigate looking at shoreline, looking at a seismic upgrade, then going through a consultation process with Craig Flower and Shoreline. And ultimately, if through that process, we move Craig Flower into the Shoreline site and get our seismic, we actually have to go through a process for school closure. So trustees will see the attached 3 memos in regards to the overview of the school closure for Craig Flower and a shoreline seismic mitigation project, and then a timeline that we've created for trustees to have a look at to see the process that we would need to be going through. And ultimately, the third document is the school closure process and step by step. So trustees asked us to bring back the actual process that we would need to be going through. And so any questions that you have about the process or procedure, staff is happy to follow up and respond.
Okay, any questions? Do our partner groups have anything they want on this? Nope. Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just through you to the superintendent, I just wondered if you could provide a little bit of clarity around what options will be presented to our stakeholders. I appreciate that the process outlines the steps in terms of consultation and who and when and so on, which is extremely helpful. But I wondered if at this point you can provide a further piece of information around the nature of the options that will be presented to them.
So this is not a new project, as trustees will be aware. We've been looking at seismic upgrading. Shoreline has been on the list before and almost got to a place of process beginning. People that lived in the Shoreline community very concerned about the bus trip they would have had to go by once we were looking at this seismic upgrade for that school, and certainly talking to that community about how we'd accommodate that. The numbers for Shoreline and the size of school that it is are very small. We also did a parallel process a short time later about French immersion and looking at our French immersion programs across our district, looking for balance across their district, which it is not balanced. And trustees going through a process of not only how they wanted French immersion to be looked at in our school district over time, whether we wanted to pivot and do it in a different way or continue it in the current process that we have, and then be able to offer French immersion programs on this other side of the city rather than the other side, to make availability to people close by was one other aspect of that. There's the consideration that Craig Flower is also a small school, is certainly in need of an upgrade as well. But population, when we're talking to the ministry, is important to look at population size when those seismic projects come up. And so some considerations with this project are whether or not Craig Flower moves over to the Shoreline site. And with our communities, if they feel that that is a solid component to this project, and they would like to both be on that site, K to grade 8, whether they would like those two schools to be melded into one or into two separate buildings. We've talked about a hub being a part of this project, and we know our nations is very keen on that being a possibility and an availability to them. We've looked at French immersion being K to 8 in this school, and also the keenness to be able to provide Kwanghan language in both of those buildings. To get the amount of numbers to be able to get this seismic project approved, we need to put those pieces together for sure. So to get the numbers of French immersion, students that would be going to K to 8, brings this project much more into the focus of the ministry. And to be able to get that through, we definitely have the interest of our communities to be able to do that. Failing that, if they stay in both buildings, the numbers of Shoreline don't necessarily bring it forward. And certainly Craig Flower would be far down the list as well. And then the third component that comes into the mix is that both of our nations are very interested in the Craig Flower property and site for their own use with the nations. And they would want to move, if our community moved in this direction, to put both of them on that site and to design a school with seismic for both schools on the Shoreline site. Then there will be definitely a consultation with both of our nations for the Craig Flower site and how they would like to be a part of that conversation and see the possibilities of how it could be used.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Are there other, Trustee Leonard?
I'm really torn about this. I don't want to go into a consultation process with the people, especially the nations, going for it because they're seeing that they're going to get a building out of this at Craig Flower after. So I don't know how we can do a consultation now through COVID. So I'm not quite sure how that piece would fit in. And having gone to Craig Flower myself many, many years ago, I'm still concerned that the children on the Craig Flower side of the bridge, I'm not sure where the catchment goes up to towards Tillicum, but that's a really long way to go for little kids. And I didn't see in any of the plans that they were going to be integrated into Tillicum because they were on that side of the water. And so I guess I have a few more concerns that there has to be a place for them. If they If they went as far up as Austin, that would be a long way to go, which is where the catchment used to be. So I've still got some niggly feelings about this one.
Colin, do you want to speak a little bit to the catchment and boundary component that comes to play into this one?
For the students that currently live in the Craigflower catchment area, if they were to be relocated to the shoreline site for their K-5 education, the traveling distance would be well within the current district and board guidelines for transportation. I think additionally, there are a couple of potential benefits to the families, certainly of the nations. And I think part of the reason why the amalgamation initially appealed to the nations was that sense of some of the older siblings being able to go to school with their younger siblings. And then finally, I know we will be somewhat reliant on the BC tripartite education agreement to remain in existence, which I sincerely hope that it does. But there is within that agreement a transportation component. So I think that those three things in combination, I think, would serve us well to be able to address the needs of the K-5 population if the elementary students were housed at the shoreline site. But no, I certainly understand that throughout the boundary review, there was a great emphasis on trying to minimize travel distance for families. And certainly, if this were to go ahead, we would be bearing that in mind. And there is no intent at this point to have any of the Craigflower catchment relocate to Tillicum, because that doesn't really enable us to manage the distribution of population effectively across our elementary schools.
And just to follow up with Colin has just said, I think it's actually good that the nigglies are the feeling, because I think that's community as well. And this started relatively 6 years ago. It is time for a good, solid consultation process to hear what the community and current communities are saying. Many of our students that we had original consultation with have moved up and aren't, as intricately involved. We're certainly hearing lots of interest, and there's a lot of interest in this consultation process. We have great feedback. So I think for trustees, you can be sure that people are going to actually be a part of this consultation process if you choose to vote to go through with it.
Trustee Ferris?
To say that with the new bridge that they put in at Craigflower, the walking route is greatly improved and enhanced, as well as the traffic light situation there is much better than it was previously. And I know that when we first contemplated that possible amalgamation of the schools, that was one of my concerns, was how people would negotiate that area. But it really is a much safer place to walk, and certainly some children will have a greater distance to walk, but it's not huge, and many of our children will benefit by the shortened distance to walk. So thank you.
Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I totally support the consultation process, and maybe I just didn't get it, but I don't understand the different questions that are going to be asked and what we're going to consult on. Maybe in the next presentation that can be more clear, because I guess for me, what I'm hearing is that we're going to do a consultation process to lead to a Craigflower shoreline merge of a K-8 system. So I don't understand what the other options are. It sounds to me, just from this discussion, that there's an idea in mind and that's the direction that we're going to go. So I guess I'm just looking to ensure that we are consulting and there are decisions to be made. because just from this conversation, I mean, maybe I've totally missed something, I'm sorry, but it really does sound like there's already a plan in mind for what's going to happen. And for me, that just feels a little bit concerning when we discuss consultation and we already have a plan.
Trustee Painter, Ryan Painter.
Thanks. No, this will be quick. I'm really looking forward to the consultation piece. I love what our district and our communications department does when we do outreach. I think it's stellar. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we do here with this. The only thing in the back of my mind, and I don't know if this is me being paranoid or not, but knowing how important it is that we keep engaged with Indigenous students, knowing what COVID-19 likely has in terms of an impact of attendance for them, knowing what moving from one school to another school is likely going to mean. I'm just curious about the process and how we're going to keep engaged with these students all the way along so that we know we're staying in touch with them now. When we move, we're staying in touch. We know what's happening. And I don't know if that makes sense, or maybe it's late in the night, but it's something that's in the back of my mind constantly, especially with COVID. So yeah, I don't know if that can be addressed or not.
Superintendent.
So I think that's a little ways down the process for sure. And we need to find out what our community is thinking, much to what Trustee Whitaker is talking about, whether or not they are wanting to stay in the two schools and then look towards seismic upgrading for both school communities and stay in that scenario, or bring the communities together, which was another option, which is a possibility then for the closure of one. And consultation, we'd have to look at something we've never done before on what the nations would like to be doing. But that is the conversation for sure. And through the consultation process, people have to give us their feedback and what they're thinking. It's a different era than it was before. And then where we are, if they decide they would like to stay in both buildings, then the process of seismic goes forward on what that looks like for timing and size and what we can do on those pieces. And to what you're talking about, Trustee Painter, staying connected to our kids is a critical element, and our families. They've been really good at talking to us about exactly how they want us to do this. So we've got Facebook and some couple of platforms that they are really clear they want us to be doing. So we stay tightly connected. And so we are following 100% their lead so that they don't lose us and we don't lose them. So it's a great point.
Okay, did anybody feel comfortable moving this motion? Trustee Ryan Painter, seconded by Trustee Tom Ferris. Okay, I feel like we got to move through this to get out the other side. Is there any other discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question, which is to approve the Craig Flower School closure public consultation plan as presented. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? So Trustee Leonard abstained. Other than that, it was all in favor. So the motion is passed. And the next item on the agenda is trustee questions. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
You are muted, Trustee Duncan.
It was bound to happen at one point this evening. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start again. I have one question tonight. And we heard last month from the superintendent about the Enhancing Student Learning Reporting Order, which requires boards to prepare and submit a report to the minister outlining student performance. It follows a couple of different criteria, following categories of students: Indigenous students living on and off reserve, children and youth in care and students with disabilities or diverse abilities. And my question was, in respect of that order, when will our district be submitting the report to the minister? And likewise, when can the board expect to receive a copy of that report?
So we are currently waiting for the actual template that's supposed to be coming to districts sooner rather than later. I'm expecting it actually anytime. We have from anywhere from June to the end of September to submit that report. Currently, we are looking at, with our IT department upstairs, trying to get the data to an easy place to be easy to access. I think we're all getting tired. My mouth isn't working anymore either, so that we can put some of those pieces together. Ultimately, my goal would be that we could get that report up and close to being finished before the end of the school year. Summertime is crazy and September is absolutely beyond silly, as we know. So if there's a possibility of getting all those components together, getting it in front of the board. We used to do it in the early June, having written the performance report before. So trustees could see it, have a chance to discuss it, and ask any questions before we could submit it at the end of June. So all things considered, that would be my goal.
Okay, I just want to note that Trustee Painter has signed off with his regrets because he has to support a family member who's injured. So not at this moment, but who needs support. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move to the Secretary Treasurer's report.
My report is on page 61 and 62 of your packet. A couple of things to highlight. We've been notified from BCPC of the $435,000 of BCTF GVTA mentorship collective agreement funding. As well, we've been given the go-ahead for design on the Mount Doug building envelope, which was part of our 5-year annual capital plan. More to come on that. It's not an announcement of a major project, but it's the design phase. Just want to highlight the school visits during the last month have been great and invaluable to the work that we do here in the board office. And just to let you know that budget development or budget department meetings have been happening where the finance team and I sit down with each department lead and talk about a 4-year budget spend analysis, carry forward discussion, and where we're at with the May initiatives that we presented to the board in its budget deliberations in May.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments? Can I have a mover to accept the report or receive the report? Trustee Leonard, Trustee McNally. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. And I'm just going to check. It's now our question period under F. Just checking to see if we have received any questions.
No questions this evening.
No questions. Thank you so much, Lisa. In which case we'll move to public disclosure of in-camera items. So at G1, there's our record of in-camera board meeting from October 26th, and then there's some other things that I want to share with you as well. Just to summarize, for the Brayfoot Field, SD61 and Lake Hill Soccer, turf field use has been approved for renewal for the next 10 years. And there's also been an addendum to the Bays United and Oak Bay turf field to extend the replacement savings plan out another 10 years because the turf was replaced in summer 2020. So we've had to move that forward as well. And so that's being advanced for the board. And then another element which is related to the SJ Burnside report, which will be online tomorrow, and then we'll have it at December Ops. But that outlines the $2 million overage, and that the overage and coverage of the deficit is set out in the report. So there's a few different items here. Yes, and the Lake Hill and Bays United agreements are still to be approved by our partners, but the board has voted to move forward with that. So we'll make sure all of that gets into the public realm in a way that isn't summarized by me at 10:18 p.m. But hopefully that gives you a sense of some of the areas that we should be paying attention to. Trustee Duncan, did you have something to add?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a question. Just a question actually about the Section 72 report from the October in camera. I just wondered, as a matter of practice, whether the board, when we are doing up our Section 72 reports and we have during a meeting in question released to the public a motion or whatever information, whether we would normally include that in the Section 72 report, just for clarity. I noticed that the motion that the board voted to make public during the October public board meeting is not in the Section 72 report.
Secretary Treasurer?
I'm not accustomed to including those. They are generally covered under the main agenda items, governance, property, legal, personnel, but I can seek clarification if you like.
Okay. Do we have any new business? Trustee McNally?
Great. Just back to the in-camera question that Trustee Duncan posed. Of course, I don't know what it is because I'm barred from those meetings, but it seems to me that if a majority of the board had voted to disclose a motion on the public record, then there's really no research needed. It should be on the public record. Am I not correct?
Secretary Treasurer?
I would just be seeking clarification under Section 77.
And we can certainly do that.
What is Section 77? I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure.
Section 70, Section 72.
Ah, thank you.
Okay, is there any new business or notices of motion? Otherwise, we can adjourn at 10:20 with the motion. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Or do you have a question, Trustee Whitaker?
I will do both, but I just wanted to say, because I don't think I'm going to see all of you before Christmas, that when you are in the office next, please do check your mailbox because I will probably leave you something there. And Merry Christmas.
Thanks so much, Anne. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Trustee McNally. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll see you.